Oh no.
Uh-oh. Well, while we wait, so I tried, you'll notice I don't have a green screen. I almost always have a green screen. This is a greenish curtain, but I tried the green screen and look what happened. I think it looks epic. You can't really see it, but it's
Is your face space?
My face is the earth, basically.
Oh, that's pretty rad.
And my forehead, which is as big as space, is now actually space. So,
well, it was worth a shot.
Cool. It's cool, but I don't think I'm not that cool.
Not that cool.
No.
I'm going to start that poll that I just set up for you guys, just to see what time you guys observe. So those of you who are on Zoom can fill this out. I have just launched it, and let us know if you observe in the morning or the evening or all night. And while you fill that out, I will provide some context for today's session. First of all, John is joining us from away from his home. So thank you, John, for.
I'm still in the bubble.
You're still in his bubble, yeah. For those of you who are out on the East Coast, the East Coast has a little bubble in which you can travel, and John is within the bubble in Prince Edward Island, but still on vacation. So thank you, John, for talking about space on your breaks.
There is nothing I'd rather do in the universe than talk about space.
So bear that in mind. Okay, how do I turn off the video so you can't see me while I prepare dinner and listen at the same time? No worries, Nada. Your video is not on. Anyone who's joining us in Zoom, we can't see you and we won't be able to hear you. And this is all entirely just so you guys can watch us and chat with us in the chat. So don't you worry. I'm going to wrap up that poll. And that poll has given us, I would say, fairly predictable results, which is most people prefer to observe in the evening. Still very good to know. There are a few people who, three people who observe in the morning, and 13 insomniacs who observe all night. So that's pretty good, nice spread. As I mentioned in our first video, we do focus all of our observations on the evening, just because that's what astronomy usually does. And if we all know anything, you should always keep doing things how they've always been done. So we just do it because we observe in the evenings, and it's easier for us to keep track of stuff. Most people would prefer to stay up late than get up early. Now, for those of you who are joining for the first time, I'm going to quickly mention what we're doing here. And what we are doing here is we are working our way through the RASC observing program, the Explore the Universe program, which is the introductory program into how to observe. And for those of you who are out on the West Coast, explore the clouds, because it's been nothing but cloudy there for 2 weeks, apparently. And also
East Coast too, yeah.
East Coast too. Toronto's been okay. Sorry, everybody. But it's also been 1.5 million degrees. So ups and downs. So we're going through that program. And then by the end of it, if you log all your observations, then you can apply and get a certificate and a pin that says that you saw stuff in space. And basically it just helps you find.
Well, I think it says something else, but that's what it says about you.
That's what it says about you. And that you're dedicated enough to spend a bunch of time outside looking at space things. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I explicitly mentioned this in the first one, and I also mentioned some incorrect facts, so I'm going to correct myself almost immediately. Last time, someone asked if they can take pictures to get their pin. I said yes, but I'm not on the observing committee that approves these things. The correct answer is no. I apologize for my misspeaking, so make sure that when you do write down your observations in whatever you choose to write them down in, that you either draw them, describe them, or you can record them with your voice, but you cannot take pictures and count those as observations, unfortunately.
Yeah, and the other thing that's important to remember is the observation for RASC doesn't count unless it includes a time and a date.
Very important. So in John's book, there is no official spot for that necessarily. So just make sure that you write down the date and time beside your observations, even if you're not using.
Yeah, that's this one. Yeah.
That's that one. This is not available to order yet, but you can print it off from our website. Everything that we talk about is on rasc.ca/etuonline, including this PDF. So this has all sorts of space for that sort of stuff. But if you're filling it in John's book, just make sure that you write the date and time that you see it.
Yep.
Okie dokie. Hello from Carla. And I will also remind you guys, we do our best to keep an eye on the chat, but we are both also communicating with you guys. So we don't always do a good job in the chat. So if you're going to ask questions, make sure that you ask them in the Q&A spot. And then if you're just going to chat, make sure that you chat in the chat box. If you are just saying comments in the Q&A, I will dismiss them because we can't find the questions then. Oh, thanks, Noelle. She just said my hair looks nice. I appreciate that. It's growing out past the Owen Wilson phase, and I'm really excited about it. Okay, so today we are going to get started with the number one thing that John wants to talk about, and the number one thing that you've probably been seeing on social media if you've been following along with space stuff, which is Comet NEOWISE. Comet NEOWISE, so I'm going to start off just in general about comets. Comets are very wishy-washy. They're very independent, and they do their own thing. In the words of, I believe it was David Levy, comets are like cats. They have tails, and they do precisely what they want to. And that has led to the past couple of years of observing comets, which has meant that we don't really get to see a lot, because the comets, we see them coming from further away in space, they get close to the sun, and then they break up and fall apart, and we don't see them all pretty and nice. The reason that we get to see comets all pretty and nice and with a big long tail is because the stuff that comets are made of, which is essentially an icy, slushy snowball, starts to break apart and lose bits to space. And so that's that tail that you see is all the little bits that are coming off of it. Sorry, John, you can go ahead and talk about NEOWISE. I was going to pause, but you go for it.
Oh, I was just looking for a map. I don't have a map for everyone right now. And so we're going to talk a little bit about how to see it. And if you have any specific questions about that, add them to the Q&A. Jenna, do you have a map? I guess that was my question.
I have it added into Stellarium. Do you want me to show that?
Oh, yeah. So that'd be great. And then we can sort of talk about it then, because we also need to know, so you've seen it. We've had clouds here for like 2 weeks straight.
Yeah.
But you've seen it visually. Is that correct?
I did. That's why I'm very scatterbrained today, because the only time you can see it right now is at 4 in the morning. And I am not an early morning observer, so I'm a little sleepy today.
But that's dedication. So you set an alarm.
Oh yeah, I had to also essentially hire a friend of mine to come with me, because I was like, if I don't have someone keeping me accountable for getting up in the morning, I'm gonna sleep right through it.
Wait, did you have to drive somewhere? Like what, how did?
Yeah, I had to, so I live in an apartment building without a balcony that faces, oh, my cat just attacked my foot, that faces southwest or so.
Mm-hmm.
So unfortunately I couldn't even see if there were clouds in the way. For those of you who are interested in what apps that we use to do stuff like this, I've already made it my phone background. I use an app called Asterism, and it gives you super precise predictions for what's going to be happening in your spot. It tells you how much cloud there is, how clear the sky is, when the ISS is passing over. Anyone in Toronto, there are 4 tonight. And so I find it very useful. So I had checked that, and I was like, okay, I know it's not supposed to be cloudy. And on my morning bike route, there are like no clear northeast views in Toronto without buildings, without trees, without ravines in the way. But I did know of one spot on my morning bike route. And so it's about a 15-minute drive away. And so I had planned it all out. I knew it faced northeast. I knew the comet was in the northeast from creeping through millions of different posts of people on our Facebook group. And I went out there and we set up the telescope and binoculars and took a look. It was very tiring. Oh, John, just make sure that you have your little text thing also set to all panelists and attendees.
Oh, yeah, it is. So asterispheric is, am I pronouncing that right?
Yeah.
I attempted to spell it, but you know my spelling.
You got it, you're fine.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna show you guys where, first of all, I'm gonna send you a link in the YouTube chat, as well as, oh, I'm on my own personal account on YouTube, as well as in the Zoom chat with how to if you're using Stellarium, how to make NEOWISE appear. It's a 2-minute video, just tells you how to have it show up in your Stellarium.
Oh, thanks for making. I actually need that. I always forget.
Right, me too. Yeah, I looked it up this morning because I was like, well, I better show people.
Mm-hmm.
So this is, we're gonna make it today, this morning at 4:40, and this is from Toronto. And we've got the moon. If you go out this early in the morning, we've got the moon, Saturn, and Jupiter are just setting. Mars is up, so that's nice, and Venus is up, which was really nice because Venus, if you have a beginner level telescope, you might be able to see a little bit of a crescent in binoculars, but with a beginner level telescope, you can actually see like a real crescent. It was very exciting. It was the first time I'd seen Venus in a telescope. So Can you skip one day forward so we can, because the moon will be in a different spot. There we go. Okay, that's fair. Here's tomorrow morning. Fair enough. Okay, so I have this all set up with to be at 4:45 in the morning. It is up earlier than that, so if you head back a ways, it should be up real early, but the problem is it's very close to the horizon. Also, a fair warning to everybody, this is quite a difficult target to find, and it's fairly advanced. It was visible to the naked eye, but it may be getting dimmer. So definitely need binoculars, and it does require some searching. It took me a little while to find it.
Yeah, it may get easier.
It may.
It may get harder. Yeah.
Who knows? Because they're comets, and comets are weird. So we've got, if you're looking at the northern horizon, this is the northeastern horizon. So you're definitely looking not south the way you normally look for a lot of observing. You're looking to the north. And this is before sunrise, sort of in the direction of where the sun's coming from. You're going to see, and this tricked me at first, you're going to see Venus, which is over here, and it's bright. And then there's another bright star called Capella, which is up above the horizon. I got lost, and I thought that Venus was Capella, and then I went too far and looking in the other direction, and it was confusing. So Venus is going to be the brightest thing, and Capella is going to be the next brightest thing in that area. And it is just down below Capella right now. So it's down this little thing over here. There it is. And remember that this isn't a picture. This is just a simulation. So there it is in the corner. So this is at 4 o'clock in the morning. So you can technically see it that early, but we didn't get there until 4:20. And it's really close to the horizon at that time. So if you're going at, let's say, 4:40, the sun is starting to come up, but it's 10 degrees above the horizon, which is about the width of your fist when it's held at arm's length. So if you hold your arm out and you look at this distance, that's about how high above the horizon it'll be. And it'll be below Capella by a little bit more than that. So I would say maybe a fist and a half, like that.
Yeah, sure. So I find stuff in the sky by star hopping almost no matter what. Can you turn the constellation lines on for a second?
Yes.
And then, so for people like me, yeah. So we've got, that's Taurus there on the right. And so that's that grouping that's sort of in the triangle with Venus in the middle, that's called the Hades. So that, for me, that's a trigger to sort of ground myself in where I'm looking. And then, so if you see that sort of flying goose-shaped object, then you'll go over to the left and up there and see Capella, and then drop down for the comet. So that's just how I would do it, because I sort of like, in my head, I've seen the constellations so many times, I see those lines.
That's fair.
Yeah.
So I still am not that familiar with this timing of constellations, because I haven't planned the Explore the Universe into the spring yet. And so I found it, I basically just found it because I knew that Capella was the brightest, and I live in Toronto, so it's not like you could really see much else. And for me, when I found it this morning, I didn't see it this far over. I saw it directly under this star. Or was it that star? I think it must have been that star.
Yeah, well, that's about how much it moves in a day as well. So
perfect, that would explain things. So yeah, so when I found it in binoculars for the first time, I looked straight under Capella, because everyone said it was straight under Capella, but of course it had moved in a day. So I then found it a little bit further over. And once I'd found a trick for myself once, then I just kept using that trick every time I wanted to look for it, because otherwise it was again just like searching around with binoculars, going where's the little smudge that's out there. So it just takes a little bit of practice, and then once you have a trick for yourself to find a specific object, just make sure that you stick with it.
Yeah, and every day it's going to move about, that far, at least in the scale of this map. So comets are really booking it. I mean, I don't know the exact speed, but it's probably about 100,000 miles an hour.
That's pretty speedy.
And so they're pretty speedy, and then relative to the Earth. And so it's moving considerably far, every night. So if you were to have a week of clouds, it'll be quite, moved quite far.
And that's part of the fun of comets, I think, because it's like, it really feels like you're exploring and you're finding new stuff.
Yeah, and just a quick aside, if anyone wants to photograph it, and so for me, one of the first comets that I ever saw as an adult was Pan-STARRS, and that was maybe 10 years ago now. And I didn't see it at all at first. But what I did is I just got a little camera tripod. I knew the direction of the sky. I put the camera on it and took a 20-second exposure. So you pretty much need a DSLR, and you just throw it into manual, focus on something in the distance, make sure your focus is set to infinity, and then crank the exposure, right now it's at bulb, to 20 seconds, a moderate to high ISO will do the trick. So if anyone's watching on YouTube, hypothetically, that would work, maybe.
Okay,
Focus.
kind of.
Anyway,
Yeah.
so you get the idea. As long as you're on a tripod, 20-second exposure, focus at infinity, mess with the settings a little bit. So you might be able to pick the comet out of the camera as opposed to with your eyes. So that's one option, and that's what worked for me the very first time.
And I am gonna, and when you're talking about pictures, and Colleen just hopped in with us, I was about to show this photo. I'm gonna show you guys our Facebook group. Also, I'm gonna show you the Google or the Chrome tab where I'm keeping an eye on the comments on YouTube. Hi, Dave. Hi, David. Hi, Peter. So our Facebook group here has a bunch of photos of it. And I want to show you guys these because they're beautiful. This is from one of our members, Deborah Saravolo, who has this like absolutely gorgeous photo. And the first reaction, I sent it to, I think it was our marketing guy, and he was like, "What, did she fly there?" Like, it's beautiful. And so I have been keeping an eye on all the photos that are coming in here that are gorgeous. Bear in mind, this isn't what it really looks like. There's some really gorgeous, beautiful photos. You won't necessarily see this. I'll show you guys what I took this morning, which, bearing in mind, I am not an astrophotographer. I have only learned what I have learned about astrophotography from hosting sessions about it. But I did try, and I will show you what I got both through my phone and through my camera. Let me show you here.
That's really impressive. Really impressive that you got it on your phone. Did you use
pleased.
Did you put it up to the binoculars, or like what was your trick?
So there's like a little device to attach your phone to your telescope or binoculars. It's just like the thing that holds the camera directly over the eyepiece. So I just did that really quick right at the end, like right as the sun was rising. So you really couldn't see much. And this is 11 photos stacked together. So even then you don't see much, but you can see a little bit of a tail. It's also sideways. My apologies. But you can see a little bit of a tail here. And then I'll show you what I got. Oopsies. I'll show you what I got for my camera, which for that one, I set it up on a tripod and I took a picture of the whole scene. And for those of you in Toronto, you may recognize the spot. I do recommend the spot if you're looking for NEOWISE because it's a nice view to the northeast. This is at Cherry Beach, or the bridge near Cherry Beach. And this is all I got. So a little thing there. It's a little tiny light spot. And you can zoom in, you can see it okay. And I did try to align them so that it worked better, but it obviously didn't do a great job. But you can see it, it's there. I was very excited about it.
That's a great photo.
I'm stoked.
I just like the comet, like even without the comet, that's really cool.
Yeah,
so someone in the questions is asking, how can they go on venting stuff in space for so long? So the reason there is like comets are huge. They're giant snowballs, but they're the size of like a city. So if you think about how much mass that is, there's a huge amount of mass there. So the sun shines on them with an incredible amount of energy, and that top layer sublimates into space, and the solar winds blow away the dust. You get your tails, and that can go on for hundreds or thousands of years as the comet makes multiple trips by the sun. So this is a periodic comet, but this comet goes around the sun once every like 7,000 years. So unlike Halley's comet, where it's possible to see it twice in a lifetime, and every time it passes, you're going to get this great, or at least I assume every time it passes, you're going to get a great tail from that comet. So this one much less frequent, and it would take a long time for that comet to really wear down, assuming it's got enough mass. But again, but we're going back to the thing, like comets are super unpredictable. So sometimes they go too near, their orbit brings them too close to the sun and they fall apart, or they crash into Jupiter, like Schumacher Levy 9.
Yeah, I wasn't alive. No, I was 2 for that, but it was still really cool.
Yeah. So they're really interesting. Even the comets earlier this year, we actually got to watch one break into different chunks, and even from the telescope at St. Mary's, we were able to measure the size of each of those chunks. So it was some really neat science you can do from that as well. And we also know a lot about comets because we've sent multiple spacecraft there. So when Halley's comet went by in '86, something like that, there were 6 spacecraft sent to intercept it. The Europeans it was like Giotto or something. They sent one, and it got right up close, so you could see details on the surface of the comet. And that's where we got the term dirty snowballs, because we knew from spectroscopy and other types of science that, yeah, they're made of, mostly ice, H2O and ammonia and some other stuff like that. But then when they flew the spacecraft to the comet, they realized that it was almost black. And so they called it dirty snowballs. So that's a really cool mission if you guys love space history, because the spacecraft, as it was approaching the comet, it was flying through that tail and it was analyzing the dust. And it actually got hit by a piece of dust, and the whole spacecraft spun out of control. And they thought they lost the entire mission. But the autopilot on the spacecraft compensated for it, was able to reverse the spin and get it communicating back to Earth. So a really fascinating mission where you actually have a spacecraft getting hit by debris and surviving.
That's very cool.
Yeah, so
I feel
definitely
like that doesn't happen too often.
it probably doesn't. Well, fortunately, space is huge, and spacecraft don't get destroyed by debris very often. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm going to just go over some quick questions, some general questions that folks have had. So, John, first of all, what camera did you have when you were holding up your camera?
Yeah, so this is just an old. This is a Canon Rebel, so it's the T3 model. So these, if people are shopping for a first very entry level DSLR camera, I buy most of my stuff used. You can get this on, I use B&H Photo because they ship to Canada for free if it's over $100. And so this camera, sometimes you can get them for $150, $200. They're an amazing. You could use this camera as you transition into astrophotography with big telescopes. If you're doing it on a budget, for example. And it's also great for the wide field stuff. And you can swap out the lenses, and the chip is great. So if you're on a budget, the Rebel series is definitely fantastic.
And that works. Does the lens come off of it? Perfect.
Yeah, so you can swap, and the sensor in this camera is the same as ones that are several levels above it as well. And then you can control this from your laptop using either Backyard EOS, which is the astronomy version, or EOS Utility. And so it's really great, versatile. If you have it on a tripod and you want to, drape a big cord out to it and use it from inside the house or something.
So there's also, thank you, John. I was using an Olympus, and I can never remember all the numbers. An Olympus EM5 Mark II, I think. I like Olympus, but honestly, with this stuff, the best camera is the one that you use. And so find one that you like. There are some better ones, technically speaking, for astronomy, but we're all beginners here, as far as I know. And so don't worry about buying like the top of the line best camera that you could possibly get, because it doesn't matter too much.
So someone's asking, conceptually, what is a DSLR? And so in astronomy, we talk about a DSLR being the minimum requirement for sort of like a versatile camera. And I'm honestly not sure 100% what it means, but here's my guess.
Digital. Oh no, what does the SLR stand for? The old type of cameras.
Yeah, because I think the old type were SLR, but I think what it means usually is that you have complete control. You have complete control of the exposure times. So you're not like using the fireworks setting or something. You're saying, I want to take a 30-second exposure. Single lens reflex is someone.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. And the idea is you also use, most DSLR cameras, you can remove the lenses.
Sweet. Okay,
well.
So we're gonna move further ahead because we're slowly running out of time. So we're having too much fun talking about comets. But I did really want to mention that I was checking emails at the same time as hosting this, and Heather Doucette just sent me this photo that she took as well of the comet last night. So I'm just always impressed by anyone who goes out and takes photos in the middle of the night, and especially like you got some nice tail of the comet there. Like that's a lot of tail to it. Very nicely done.
Yeah, and that looks like it's through a telescope as well.
I think so. Yeah, I imagine that you probably Heather probably held her phone up to the lens as well for that, which it looks fantastic. It's great.
Yeah, great job, Heather.
And Michelle, you're asking a lot of questions. I'm going to answer them as fast as I can so that we can get to this week's targets. How can you join the RASC? If you want to join the organization, just head to rasc.ca, and I'll type that out in the chat. I haven't been keeping an eye on that. There we go. And click join. If you'd like to, you can join with a center. So whatever center is closest to you, they will often host observing nights, although everything is kind of shut down right now. But they'll have observing nights and talks and stuff like that in person once things get back up and going again. And do we work with the CSA? Not officially, but we are thinking about offering some training with the CSA. So if anyone's interested in that, I definitely recommend if there are any space educators out there, just either get in contact with me or join the RASC and you'll get some information about that as well. Okay, I'm going to jump into the targets because it is 25 minutes past when we started, depending on where in Canada you're joining us from. And
wait, time moves slower out east, I know.
Yeah. It's you're on island time essentially. So last week's targets, we had a lot of lunar stuff. Let me know in the chat and let us know in the chat how you felt that went. If you guys got out to get to see it. Reminder, clause, I am not an artist, but I drew Mare Crisium. Yeah, I drew Mare Crisium.
Very nice.
There it is. And I got to see, I'm going to be honest, I didn't draw the Sea of Serenity. I'll get to that next full moon.
I didn't see that. So we had literally no clear nights at all during when the moon was up.
Oh man.
The whole 2 weeks, yeah. So and we only got according to Dave Lane, who runs the Brook Gaffney Observatory, 30 minutes of clear sky in the last 2 weeks. Yeah.
That's sad. I'm so sorry.
And I set up the telescope and I got it in focus and the clouds came in.
Oh man.
That was it for me for observing for the whole 2 weeks. So.
Well, you made the effort. And the nice thing about the observations from last week is that all of them, yes, all of them are still visible the next time the moon is full. Most of them were moon targets, so you can still see them anytime the moon is full. So if you missed them last week, don't worry, there'll be other opportunities to find them. I found, wait.
Yep, the moon will be back.
Yes, the moon will be back. Oh. This week's targets, oh, and you can see my very sad drawings of, that's the very sad drawing of NEOWISE. I didn't see much in the telescope. It was as good as it got. This week's targets, we're going to focus on a couple of constellations that'll help us find some deep sky objects. Deep sky objects are things that are far away. The definition is technically something like not a single star, which is like anything that's out in space that is a single star.
Outside the solar system. So basically they fall in a couple categories: star clusters, galaxies, nebula, planetary nebula. That's pretty much it.
I think that's it. Yeah. So the reason, before we jump into what the targets are and how to find them this week, I wanted to mention a couple of things. First of all, light pollution. We didn't really get into this last week. Light pollution is a bit of a problem when it comes to observing from cities. I'm in Toronto, John's in Halifax. We both have light pollution. His isn't as bad as Toronto's. It just comes from unnecessary light that is shining up into the atmosphere. And it blocks our view of the stars. The light from these artificial lights outshines the stars, so you can't see the stars through it. And it's not too much of a problem when we're looking for constellations. In fact, I actually find it makes it easier to see the constellations. I'm going to switch us to gallery view so we can both be seen.
So the constellations that are important to know can almost all be seen from the city. So some constellations that are more obscure and don't help you find sort of the gems within or the deep sky objects. Like one of the reasons we learn constellations in the first place as amateur astronomers is because they help us find things in the sky. Well, the ones that you use to find stuff in the sky are generally the brighter constellations.
Mm-hmm.
And
so it's easier to see them in the city.
Yeah.
Or find them in the city. And sometimes when you're in the country, they just kind of absorb into all the background stars because the background star, there's so many other stars out there that you kind of get lost. I always get lost anyway. So we have 3 constellations that we're going to look at this week that are going to help us find stuff in the sky, and that's Hercules, Scorpius, and Sagittarius. Just a heads up, I sent these out in the reminder email for this session, but I also have put them on our website. So there's the link to all of the targets and how to find them for this week. Slightly more organized than last week. Last week's targets are also up on that website. So if you need them, they will be there. So we're going to look at those 3 constellations. We're also going to look at a phase of the moon. So that's one of the sets of targets in the Explore the Universe program, is to actually look at the phases. So we're going to look at the 3rd quarter of the moon this week, or this next 2 weeks, this fortnight. And we're going to look at 3 deep sky objects that are relatively easy to find, even if you're close to a city. But I do recommend, in terms of that light pollution, to try to get a little ways out of the city. to look for them. So I will often go about 30, 40 minutes, sort of like northeast of Toronto, to get out of the city. It would help as well. There's another spot that's up near Mississauga, although I'm not sure it's open right now, which is the Forks of the Credit Provincial Park. Some people will go there. You're just basically looking for a spot that doesn't have too many streetlights around and is kind of far away from the city.
Yeah, and doesn't have too many things blocking your view of the sky.
That too.
Yeah.
And in this case, so today's targets, most of the targets that we're looking at are pretty far south, which means a couple challenges. Anyone who's further north is going to have trouble because they're pretty far south, and that means they're going to be right on the horizon. So anyone who's
further
like
north, as in like Newfoundland or northern Alberta or
BC, and northern BC already has issues because it's daylight all the time. So
there's that too.
Yeah. But these will be visible for and in southern Ontario, in Toronto, there's a bit of an issue because if you go north of the city is south of you, so all of the light is in the way. So you have to kind of be careful about where you go for these. You can still see them in light polluted skies. You just have to try really hard and have low expectations. So we're going to see M13, which is a globular cluster in Hercules. We're going to see M8, which is the Lagoon Nebula. So that is a nebula. And then we're going to find, this one's an easy one to find no matter where you are. We're going to find the coat hanger, which is also known as Broca's cluster.
Yep. I'm not going to pronounce it.
Something like that.
Yeah, I see Dave Chapman just commented, and I know if I try it, we'll get that correction.
Yeah, Dave.
Post haste. Yeah.
Don't be angry at our pronunciations.
Yeah.
And then we're also going to look at, so that's also known as Colander 399. There's a couple different names for it. Oh, good. Dave doesn't know either. That's comforting. So the spelling is in the chat, and I'm going to send it out on YouTube as well.
Yeah. So to prove that it's not impossible, so I started stargazing from San Francisco and was able to see, and I use a telescope like that. You can almost fit this in your pocket. And this is my travel telescope.
My mind is blown by the fact that you're on vacation and you're pulling out props. Like, okay,
you got it. Dedication. Yeah, so I was able to see, I think the telescope I used at the time was maybe even smaller than this. And from just outside of San Francisco, I was able to see M13. And it looks just like a little smudge. But props for seeing it. Like it's impressive. When you first start seeing deep sky objects, it's a big sense of personal accomplishment. Like, wow, you've taken your astronomy to the next level. And it's an amazing feeling, even if yeah.
There's something so sad. I know they're just smudges, but the day that I found the Andromeda Galaxy, which is like even visible by like without a telescope or binoculars, but the day I found it in binoculars was possibly the best day of my life. Like, I felt so accomplished. I found it and then I went, oh, and then I immediately put the binoculars down and I was like, that was a fluke. I should try again.
Yeah, and then as you progress in astronomy, like you're gonna use in your lifetime bigger telescopes, and you'll see the same object again, and then it will really blow your mind because like M13 is just, you'll see hundreds of thousands of stars in this ball, and it's really impressive. And Dave points out in the comments, M13 is straight up overhead, and that helps as well because there's less air mass between you and the object. Whereas things on the horizon, you're looking through a lot of air and a lot of sky, and it can make them harder to see.
I'm gonna share our screen so that I can show you guys how to find this stuff. And that is, John has a very good point with that. Things that are further up, you're looking through less atmosphere, and so it's easier to see stuff that's straight up ahead than it is to see stuff along the horizon of the Earth, where you have to look through a ton of atmosphere. So the best time to observe these deep sky objects is when they're highest in the sky. There's a technical term for that. I can't remember what it is.
I just think of it as air mass.
No, I mean like when it hits its highest point in the sky.
Oh, crosses the meridian, or
yeah, there's
yeah,
anyway.
they're right. You're right. There is a term.
There's a term, but
Dave will probably know.
Dave will know. Anyway, so there's terms, but either way. So I'm going to show you guys a couple of things. Is that him in the chat right now?
Oh, no.
Nope. Oh, the chat's not working for me. Okay, so I'm going to show you guys, first of all, I'm going to show you the summer triangle really quick. We'll talk more about this next session, but this is something that's really easy to find when you first head out. I don't know how to bring asterisms up on this. Should have thought of that. This is a very bright triangle that's in the sky. It's that. You can see it from Toronto, no problem. You can see it from anywhere. It's really bright, and if you're in somewhere that's darker, the Milky Way also runs through it. So it's right on the Milky Way if you're looking for it, where you can actually see the Milky Way.
Remember how we were talking about you can make up your own asterisms?
Yeah,
So my wife calls this the great pizza slice.
that's delightful.
Yeah.
And actually, I'll tell the story if we have time later, but there's a friend of or a mutual friend of John and mine, who told us a great story about El Toro, La Bull,
Oh my gosh.
which we'll talk about later. So this is the great pizza slice, as it were, or the summer triangle. And the star that is closest to the setting sun and is also brightest in the triangle, that star is called Vega. And we're looking for Hercules. And to find Hercules, I find it helpful to know where Vega is and know where Arcturus is. Arcturus you can find still in the sky just by doing that trick that we learned 2 weeks ago, that arcing through the handle to Arcturus. So you have those two bright stars, and that will help you significantly to find Hercules, which there we go. So once you get to those two stars, you want to look about 2/3 of the way from Arcturus to Vega, or 1/3 back. And you'll see this little square. And that little square is the center of Hercules' body.
Yeah, so it's nicknamed the keystone.
Yeah, because it looks like a keystone.
Keystone, but I don't know. I just think of it as another square.
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple of constellations look like squares, like Pegasus, whatever. Yeah.
Pegasus, yeah, Pegasus is a good square. We'll look at Pegasus later. So this is Hercules. I can never keep track of his limbs. But that doesn't matter in this particular instance. If you want to draw the limbs in as your observation of that constellation, then you can, and you probably should, realistically. I am not the observing committee person, but I'm sure they'd say, yes, you have to draw the full constellation. So I'm going to just draw a picture so you get an idea of, so there's his body and his limbs all.
Yeah. Although to clarify, you don't need to actually draw the constellations to get your.
Oh, no?
I think you just have to prove that you've seen them.
How?
So you just say, hey, I've seen this constellation, and then you're supposed to observe the stars, so that, like, mentally, so that you know you've got them, or visually. Fair. And then there's usually a bright star that's named in them, and so you're supposed to make note that you've seen the brightest star in the constellation, or two brightest stars. Yeah.
Thank you, John, for coming in with the technicalities.
The challenge with Hercules, this almost goes against what we were saying earlier. About seeing constellations from the city. This is Hercules from a city, at least downtown, is at the limit of what you can see. So the stars in the keystone are quite dim.
Mm-hmm. That I do recommend going a little ways. And honestly, for all of this, because we're doing deep sky objects, I'd recommend going as far as you can from as much light as possible. And no matter what, just make sure you don't have any headlights, street lights shining directly into your eyes.
Yeah, and I also don't like to look at a phone before going stargazing. Yeah.
Okay, John, we got to get going. We only have
all right.
like 10, 20 minutes left.
Okay.
Okay, so we're at Hercules. You've found the keystone. Hooray.
With your eyes.
With your eyeballs. You've found the keystone. And now what you need to do when you're looking for M13, which is you can call it the Hercules cluster, the globular cluster in Hercules to help you remember. M13 is in Hercules. You're looking for the two westernmost stars on the keystone. Now, I have such a hard time remembering which way is west and east that every single time I have to go, where did the sun set? Okay, the sun set over there, and it rises in the east and it sets in the west. Okay, so that's west. If you have to do that every time, that's fine, because sometimes that's what it takes to remember.
So I don't even bother thinking about it for the most part. So when I'm looking for M13, it's the globular cluster is located between two of the stars in the side. So I basically just go, if I'm using binoculars or a telescope, and I will just pan all the way around until I hit it.
Fair enough. Yeah, that works too. And then in that method, you don't just sit there going, it should be here, which is what I do. So
yeah, and like Dave said, this is straight over your head. So
yeah. Is it?
So, or it's going to be fairly high up in the sky.
Yeah, it's fairly high up. Yeah.
Yeah, if you're lame, and I'm not sure what time of day this is, but
this is 1 a.m, I guess.
1 a.m. Okay, because stuff rises in the east, sets in the west. So at some point, it's going to be fairly high over your head. When I'm viewing M13, especially if you're going to use binoculars, for me, I like to lay back in a lawn chair that goes fairly back, or even lay on a picnic table or something. I'm going to see the keystone visually, and then you're going to, while looking at it, you're going to bring the binoculars up to your eyes. And that's sort of make sure they're focused and everything we talked about last week first. Yes. But again, so this one, because it's straight overhead, I find it, just me, I find it fairly difficult to do while standing.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I can see that. So once you go around keystone, or you look between the two stars in the west, you'll be able to find this little glob. It's a glob. It's a fuzzy spot. You can even see it sometimes, I would say, with the naked eye. Personally, I would say that if you're in a really dark sky. But what it'll look like is just a little fuzzy spot. The stars are exaggerated a little bit right now, but essentially it's just a ton of stars.
Yeah, so that's your big telescope view there.
Yes.
So like if you've got an 8 or a 12-inch Dobsonian, that's the view you'll get, which will really blow your mind the first time you see it. That's where you get one of the big wows.
Yeah, but realistically, you're probably looking for something more like that.
Yeah.
As a little fuzzy spot. So
hey,
it's
satellite.
Is there a satellite? Did one just go by? So the cool. Oh yeah, there is one. Hello, friend. What are you? Global Star MO55. So the cool thing about globular clusters, they are massive, massive groups of stars that were all born out of one cloud, and they're so close together that their gravity keeps them together, and so they never separate from their little group of stars in their entire life cycle. Most of so like our closest star is 4 light years away. These stars would be much closer together, and the sky would be just full of stars, which would be really, really cool if you were inside of M13. Anyway, so that's the first globular cluster, and that's the first deep sky object that's on the list, and the constellation with how to find it as well. So looking for that keystone between Vega and Arcturus, and then searching around the edges of the keystone with binoculars or a telescope to look for that fuzzy spot. There should not be other fuzzy spots in the way. Okay, so we've got those two. Next, I'm gonna show you guys, because we had just talked about the summer triangle, I'm gonna show you guys how to find the coat hanger, which is a really easy one to find. I really like it because it's super fun and cute.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites.
Yeah. So here's the summer triangle. And we know that Vega is closest to the setting sun, or is on the intersection of the two shorter sides. And then the furthest one south, this one here is called, I call it Altair. I think some people call it Altair. So those are the two bright, get out of here. Those are the two bright stars in this, on that side of the triangle. It's the middle length side of the triangle. And what you're looking for when you're looking for the coat hanger is you're gonna start at Altair and head up towards Vega. And lo and behold, there's a little upside down coat hanger. Boop, of stars.
And if you're using a telescope, someone actually asked about my telescope. So this is a Celestron C90 or a Celestron 90mm spotting scope. So it has a lot of magnification. So if you're using something like this to look at the coat hanger, it might not even fit. So the coat hanger is definitely a binocular target, because if you try to use a telescope that's got too much magnification, you won't even recognize it. You'll just be seeing two stars on the side, or it just won't work as well as binoculars. So this is one of the best binocular targets out there.
This is a good binocular target, yeah. And I didn't even bother looking at it in a telescope because it takes up like the entire field of your binoculars. Yeah. So that's a super fun and easy one to find. You can see it in Stellarium from quite a ways away. It's right there. So it's about closer to Altair than it is to Vega, but it's nearly halfway in between. Oh, no, a little bit closer. So it's about there, and then the two stars are here. Super fun one to find. There are instructions for that on the website, like there are for the other ones as well. And yeah, it's just cute and neat. And this is the whole thing with asterisms, where it's like, this is just a bunch of stars that happen to look like a thing, but our human brains are like, oh yes, a pattern, perfect.
Yeah, so there's lots of asterisms here. I wish we could turn the feature on in Stellarium, but the summer triangle, so Vega has an asterism called the diamond right below it. And that one can help you find another deep sky object in the future, M57. Deneb, which is the star on the left in the, in this
John?
Yeah.
We only have 15 minutes left.
All right, I'm trying to be quiet. I'm reeling it in. Okay, let's
reel it in, buddy. We're gonna get to
we'll talk about that next week. Let's go on to M8's next, right?
Yes. So that means I'm gonna first I want to find Scorpius, which is not really related to anything, but it's cool. And then we'll find Sagittarius, and then we'll find M8, and then we'll find the last target, which I forgot to tell you guys about. And it's a double star, so it's a little bit trickier. Okay, so first of all, Scorpius and Sagittarius are both in the southern sky, so they're right at the horizon. And I find Scorpius easier to find because it has this really bright star in it, and that's this one right here. It's called Antares, which, if you know your Latin, means enemy of Mars, or opposite of Mars, I think. And that's because it's right on the line where all the planets exist, and it looks a lot like Mars, but it isn't. It's just a red star. So you get to see the color, which is very neat. And that red star, Antares, is the heart of the Scorpion. So that is in the middle of the Scorpius constellation. And the whole constellation comes out like this. I've personally never seen the hooked tail because it's just too close to the horizon for me. And for a lot of northern latitudes, you won't be able to see it. I always see these stars out here that form this little, I suppose that's meant to be the head of the Scorpion, and the claws got taken away for Libra, but whatever.
I don't know. I call it the rake.
Sure, it looks, yeah, it's fair. It looks like a rake, yeah.
Yeah.
So I find those to be the easiest to see. But that is Scorpion there. That is Scorpius there. And if you're in these southern latitudes, this is, or watching Disney movies, this is sometimes referred to as Maui's fishhook. And that is, they would see it the other way around in the sky because they're viewing it from the southern hemisphere. Right beside Scorpius, we're not going to use to find any deep sky objects, but right beside Scorpius to the east, you can see the cogs turning inside of my brain, is a teapot. It is literally a teapot in the sky. This is another asterism, which I think is
literally.
great. It's literally a teapot. Well, it's not literally a teapot. It's figuratively a teapot, and it sure looks like one. And that's, sorry, I almost got it wrong. That's Sagittarius. So Sagittarius is right next to Scorpius, and you can find this little teapot. I recommend just starting with the teapot, and if you would like to see the rest of the stars, you can try from there, but like the teapot's the go-to for this. And that, again, it's hard to see the rest of the constellation. It's also quite close to Saturn and Jupiter right now. So there's Jupiter and there's Saturn. So you'll be able to see it, that it's, if you're looking for the teapot and you can't find it, it's between Saturn and Jupiter right now and Scorpius. And then from Sagittarius, I haven't technically actually observed M8 before, but when I was looking at this, it looked to me like the steam that was rising from the teapot. So
yeah, so if you're in really dark skies, this is one of the most obvious deep sky objects. So you'll look and you'll be like, is it a little bit cloudy there? And you'll look at the Milky Way, and it's really bright even against the background of the Milky Way, without any telescope at all. And then when you bring up binoculars, it's quite obvious. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
I'm really excited to see this one. It is really bright, and this is, of course, bear in mind that this is like a photo with a lot of exposure. This is the close-up version of the Lagoon Nebula, and this is what you
say a lot, but if you have even a camera like this and a telephoto lens and a 30-second exposure, will almost get that. It's that
really
bright. Yeah,
that's very cool.
It helps to have tracking.
Yeah.
because of where it is, like you'll get star trails across the sky. But in the future astrophotographers, definitely that is one of, if it's summertime, that's one of your best first targets for sure.
Amazing. Cool. I didn't start there, so I'm really excited to try that one.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're basically just looking for, there's a lot of fuzzy stuff around here. So if you are in darker skies, you might find some other things while you're searching. But what you're looking for is that steam that's coming out of the teapot spout straight up. Okay. That covers the three big deep sky objects that we were looking for this time, which is M13, M8. M13 is the globular cluster, M8 is the nebula, and the coat hanger, which is just an open cluster that happens to look like a coat hanger. And I do want to go over one last target before I also mention when the best time to look at the moon is. And that last target is in Bootis, which we found last week. And that's why I told you guys about it last week. Bootis is, the bright star is Arcturus. So that was the one that we found by arcing down the Big Dipper's tail. And this is a double star. We're going to do a bigger session with more double star targets later, but the double stars can be quite difficult. It's like deceptively difficult because it's hard to tell if you're looking at the right thing. I find like it's if you look at it in Stellarium, it's not, and you're trying to find it with a telescope, it doesn't look like what Stellarium has shown you because your telescope flips the thing unless you set Stellarium to have it to be your telescope, which I haven't figured out how to do and haven't bothered how to learn. So I just get very confused. But
and the scale is different. So that like the stars are points of light, but Stellarium gives them a more of a size based on how bright they are. Yeah. So
and I've skewed that too. I've skewed that larger so that you guys can see it better too. So like that's also wrong. So it is trickier. This one's not too bad though. I have found it and it's not too bad. You can see it in binoculars. And you can see it from outside of Toronto as well. Oh, I think I actually saw it from inside. I saw it from
Yeah,
Cherry
no,
Peak.
double stars have most of them have almost no light pollution impact.
So that's great.
Yeah, sometimes it makes them trickier to star hop your way if the reference stars are harder to see in light pollution skies, but pollution, is not going to inhibit you from seeing them. They're not going to be too dim to see.
That's very helpful. So this one is Mu. Stars have various different naming conventions. It doesn't really matter what they are. Astronomers never agreed on like a single thing. So some of them have numbers, some of them have Greek letters, some of them have neither of those. Like some of them are names from other cultures that were first to discover the stars. And then the Greek folks came in and were like, we're going to name them new things. So it's all names. The point is, it's the star that is at the top of this kite formation. So you're looking for the very top star and then the star down to the left. And they form this nice little triangle. I don't remember what they're called, isosceles triangle, with this little star up here. And that little star up there is Mu Bootis. That is the double star. And it's relatively easy to find because it is relatively bright. And if we zoom in, you can see why it's a double star. Unless I've made the stars too blobby. I have made the stars a little blobby. But you can see that there are 2 stars there. 2 stars. So that's what you're looking for, 2 stars close by. Usually when I go out observing, because I don't want to look at my phone and I don't plan enough ahead to print off the pictures, I just draw what I think is Mu Bootis. And I know it's actually Mu Bootis, but I've been having fun calling it Mu Bootis. And so I drew, and it's super, super dim and you can't really see it. It's super, super small. I drew these like 2 little tiny dots and 1 dot nearby because that was all I could see. And I'm pretty sure that is now looking at this because my telescope is flipped. It's these 2 stars and that star next door. And so I will draw what I think I see and what I think is right. And then I'll come back and check and be like, okay, yes, that was correct. Or I will say, no, you're missed it entirely. Go back and try again, which is not the end of the world either.
Yeah, and again, if you're doing using either the workbook or just logging it a different way, you don't need to necessarily draw it to get the credit. Just record what you saw, what time you saw it, and that counts towards the certificate. Yep. Sure
does. Okay, thank you, John, for that. I'm just checking the chat to see if we've missed anything. That pretty much covers all of the stuff that we wanted to talk about today. The one other thing that I wanted to mention is that some people, and I'm going to turn off the screen for this. Oh, wait, no, I was going to talk about the moon. Just kidding. Sorry, everybody. Psych. We're going to talk about the moon. The moon phase for this week, we don't have any moon targets because we're coming up, well, we've already gone past the full moon, so we're coming up on a period of dark skies, which is why we chose some deep sky objects this week, is because the moon's going to be new. But if we go to the 12th, we will be at 3rd quarter moon, which makes for good observing because there's no moon up until quite late. So the moon will start rising at, where are you, buddy? Let's see, around 1 in the morning. The bonus to this, for all of you people who said you're evening observers, I apologize. You can see this in the morning and a chunk of the daytime as well. So this is how I would observe the 3rd quarter moon because I like to sleep, is I would just wait until daytime. It's 7:30 in the morning and you can go and you can see the 3rd quarter moon above you. So I would recommend that that's what you do this week to catch this late phase moon. You don't need to look for details on the craters. All you have to do is just notice that it's at its 3rd phase, and that's it. So give that, I would say that's probably the best way to do it. If you want to stay up until 1 in the morning, you can. I am not one to judge. Do whatever you'd like.
Well, you say it rises at 1, but you then want to wait until it gets high enough that it's over the buildings and
It's true. So really you're looking at 3 in the morning and then you can try looking for NEOWISE while you're out there. And so, it's all up to you how you do this. I actually,
so your advice is just never sleep.
Yeah, why would you? Space happens at night.
Yeah.
See, this is the hobby for functional insomniacs and I just can't do it. I can't, I'm not a functional insomniac. So that is it for the objects this week, but I wanted to mention about being prepared to go out observing because we didn't talk about how to prep to go out observing. We only have 5 minutes left, so we'll do this quickly. And if you have questions, ask them now, and we'll get to them after we finish this. A lot of folks have lists that they've made from experience of what they like to take outside, and it'll include things like clothes warmer than you think you'll need. And actually this is in John's book as well. That's what he's flipping to, I can tell right now. Bug spray, a toque. Have you got it?
Well, so it just says dress warm in terms of that stuff, but this is, so I sort of have a toolkit that you sort of build up over time. You know, you've got, oh, I didn't even bring it out. A little headband, red light is one of my favorite. A book, you know, like I recommend the activity workbook, the telescope.
Shameless plug.
Yeah, so you want a way to record your observations. Don't forget your binoculars. This is some stuff for more advanced telescope users. Yeah, I mean,
bug spray is important. And the thing is, like, as you go, write down the stuff that you like and add it to the list, and, you know, stick it on your door or whatever. I love lists, but for some reason that doesn't work for me. So what I like to do is just have bags packed for things that I like to do already. So I like to climb, and so I have a bag that is packed for climbing, and I like to do observing. So I have my red headlamp and spare batteries and bug spray and a pencil and my, like this, I'll put in as soon as I'm done this talk. It's all in a backpack, so that when at 9 at night someone says, hey, let's go look outside, I'm like, okay, and then grab my bag and go. So I prefer that method.
Yeah, I just keep a giant tupper.
That's a good way to do it too. Yeah.
You know,
I also live out of I don't live out of my car. I live in a building, but all of my things are in my car, and I have like a blanket there, and I have an extra spare headlamp in there, and I have extra bug spray and sunscreen, although that doesn't matter at night. But yeah, and be careful. Yes, good point from Heather. Be careful your bug spray doesn't get on your glass as well. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to quickly go over some of the questions that are in the Q&A.
Are you guys astronomers is a question.
How do you find, okay, hold on. Sorry, I don't want to interrupt, but can I interrupt?
Yeah, definitely interrupt.
Okay, so we are amateur astronomers, although John actually does have a degree. So John, you're an astronomer. I am an amateur astronomer.
I guess. I feel like astronomer, the word now, is like anyone who goes out and just appreciates the night sky. You can call yourself an astronomer.
You can.
Professional astronomers like to be called by what they do. So a professional astronomer might be a planetary scientist or an astrophysicist or a cosmologist, but not the makeup kind, the space kind.
That's cosmetology. Yeah.
There's a difference.
There's a difference.
Yeah. The only thing you don't want to do is call them astrologers, because they consider that, you know, in the realm of fortune telling, and that's a no-no. Yeah, so usually by their title if they're a professional, or just doctor.
Yes, that too. So I've had a bit of beef with this lately, because there have been a lot of posts of people saying things like, all the real astronomers are out observing NEOWISE. And I really hate that gatekeepy term of like, you're not a real astronomer unless blank, blank, blank. And so I wasn't going to show this because it's really, really dumb, but I was angry about this when I got back from observing the comet this morning. And so I made myself a real astronomer badge that says that I woke up early to see a space snowball, and I took pictures of it to prove it.
Nice.
Which is how I feel when people say things like, you're not a real astronomer unless blank, blank, blank. Like, it doesn't matter. Just go out and enjoy space. Like, you can call yourself an astronomer, identify how you want to, enjoy the night sky. You don't even have to own a telescope or binoculars. You can just go and look at the stars and call yourself an astronomer, okay?
Totally.
Everyone enjoys stuff differently. So, sorry, coming down off my soapbox, but that makes me it upsets me that people think that like, this is so important that we need to keep people out of this hobby, when I just really love space and I want everyone to love it too, so. Hope that answers your question and several more that you didn't ask. There's a question about kids joining in, and they're really interested. Could they complete the program with you if they do their own observations and drawings, etc.? I am not on the observing, but I would say you could. Like, yeah,
absolutely. And I think the easiest thing to do would be just, and I know it's selfless plug.
That's okay. Go for it.
You know, just get the workbook, and just. Basically, this is designed so that you can just open it up and do whatever's on that page. And so if it's summer, there's a page, it'll say summer at the top, and it'll give you some targets. Go out and try and find them. You know, and if for young kids, like my kids love looking at the moon. And so basically you just look at the moon and you draw what you see. And then for the observing program, you just label.
So I would certainly, for kids especially, I would say that John's book is a really good option. It's available on Amazon. The link is on rasc.ca/etuonline. We have ordered copies to sell at our office as well, from our office, but they are not arriving until August. So that's fun. I know, I'm really angry about it.
Yeah.
And
that's also, it's a companion book to these books too. Yeah. So that's, if you get all 3 of these, you know, you're really good to go.
Yeah. So,
but then RASC has the resources as well.
So we have stuff that's a little bit more like nerd heavy. It's all spreadsheets and that sort of stuff. It's really good for the observers who really want to keep track of everything that they do. And it's got the lists of all the stuff that you need to do for Explore the Universe, which is useful for people who like lists. But if you've got kids, I recommend John's books, and just have them, follow along, draw their own. As long as they're the ones who are observing and they're drawing it, I would say that gets them the certificate. So have them do that. If I've said something wrong, no doubt the observing committee will let me know, and I will let you guys know what I said wrong in the next session.
And a lot of questions about equipment and stuff. I think we talked about that last time.
And we're also not going to talk about it too much right now, because there are, if you have any questions about what kind of telescope to buy or what kind of binoculars to use, the last session, which is on YouTube, has some information about that. There's some on our YouTube channel from earlier Insider's Guide to the Galaxy sessions, and shout out to Astronomy by the Bay, which is another YouTube channel with RASC members that has several sessions about what telescope to buy. It's not an easy, just simple like this one. So make sure that you do have to go and check it out. Check out all those resources for all of that stuff. And then a reminder that all of the names for the books that we're talking about and the links for the downloads for this stuff are all at rasc.ca/etuonline. And I'm going to yet again type that into the chat. Everything's going to be there, including, the last thing. I know it's after 4:30, but I have to say it. We're opening up our Discord channel. Woo! Yeah, so Discord is, we mentioned this last time, Discord is an essentially online chat platform that mostly gamers use, but it works really well for what we're doing as well. So we're opening up our Discord channel to allow you guys to join and chat about the stuff that you see in space with us on there. We will be on there a fair amount, but we won't necessarily be on there all the time. I know our marketing guy is on there a lot. It's a very goofy place. The invite link is now in the chat, and I'll put the invite link up on YouTube, but it won't be there forever because then we will get bots. So if you want to join now. All you have to do is make a quick account. It's free, and then you get to chat with everyone who's in the program and share your observations. You can share pictures of what you've taken or seen, and just have like general fun times conversations. You will see that Eric, the marketing guy, has already, we've already been goofing around in there. And John's in there too. So it's a good place to hang out.
And your announcement's working, because I have Discord on and I'm getting a whole bunch of new notifications right
Yay! Now. Okay, Eric will be in there sorting things out and making sure that you guys have the appropriate permissions to be doing all the stuff that we'd like you to do. And eventually we'll be sending this out to everybody in the RASC as well, so that they can all join in on the conversations too. And yes, Dave Chapman has just said we can consider having an ETU light for kids only. I actually just went to the chair of the observing committee to talk to him about that. It was proposed during the annual general meeting in June. And so we are thinking about having a certificate for kids that's just like 1 to 2 nights of observing, super like easier level stuff things. So that's sort of kids aged, I would say like 5 to 11 or so. And it's things like draw a picture of the moon and, see a shooting star, stuff like that. So we haven't got that finished yet, but it's on our minds, and I will let the folks know who have come up with this idea and offered to write a proposal to finish writing their proposal, and we will have that happening soon. And the last question, I actually don't know the answer to this one.
Nope.
Can I request a star wheel if I'm a RASC member? I am not sure. I think you can get it for free if you are willing to pay shipping. That is the only thing with the star wheels. Okay, I think that's everything.
Yeah.
Only 5 minutes late.
So do you want to wrap up, or is that?
I will wrap up.
All right.
Thank you everybody for joining for this session. I hope your observations are going well. I'm looking forward to chatting with you guys in the Discord chat to see how it's going, and maybe give some advice if you're not missing targets or you can't find them. In the Google Calendar, there's a list of times to see stuff. July 20th is the best date to see the deep sky objects because it's a new moon. Also, Saturn is at opposition, which means that it's going to be nice and bright. It means it's on the opposite side of the sun to us. That's happening for Jupiter a couple days before on July 14th. So I believe those are all in the Google Calendar. The moon is on July 12th. Two more last little fun things. The moon and Venus are close together on the 13th and 14th in the morning. So if you want to see the moon and Venus less than 3 degrees away from each other, so that 3 finger widths at full arm's length, that's 13th in the morning. And if you're feeling particularly fancy, then you can go to go out on, oh no, what's the date? Sometime. It's in the calendar. Uranus is close to the moon. It's 4 degrees north of the moon. It's hard to find, and I haven't gone over how to find it because it's really, really dim. But if you're feeling fancy and advanced, then you can go and do that. It's in the calendar as well. And yes, Dave, you will officially be a real astronomer if you see the comet. That's all that matters. That's what we've learned from this session. Thanks, definitely. Everyone.
If you have any more questions, you can follow me on Twitter. I'm at Learn to Stargaze, and I'll do my best to answer questions. And anyone that bought my book on Amazon, thank you so much. I saw some sales come in, so that's great. This is how I make a living as an author. And please, if you bought it, please write a review, hopefully a good one, on Amazon.com or .ca, and that would really help me out. So awesome. Thanks again, everyone.
John's books are great. Everybody order them, and then soon we will also have some more options from the RASC website. We're not there yet. Join our Discord server. Thanks everybody for joining, and we'll see you guys in 2 weeks on the Thursday after this. Happy observing. Let us know how it goes.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody. Clear skies.